Just how good are modern AI image generators? That's a question I asked myself recently, and I decided to try it out. So in front of you here is an actual TRS-80 Model 1 from the 1970s, and here's another view that includes the cassette deck. I decided to use these four AI engines, Gemini, ChatGPT, Canva, and Leonardo, all with the free versions. So let's see how they do. So I started off with a very simple description. Create a realistic image of a TRS-80 Model 1 with a cassette deck attached and a cassette tape in it. This is what I'm calling version 1 of my text description. So this is what Gemini created, which is a really interesting take. You can see that it kind of tried, but it gave a separate keyboard, computers in the monitor, which it is not, and the cassette deck is something I've never seen in my life. Now we move on to ChatGPT. This at least kind of came out similar looking, although this is more like a Model 3 than a Model 1 that had the keyboard and monitor combined into one. When I entered that text into Canva, it kind of gave me this zoomed in look with the cassette on the right and the keyboard and monitor attached. I asked it to zoom out a little, and this is what it came up with. I found it humorous that the cassette is in it, but I guess it wasn't clear what the it was referring to, the computer or the cassette deck. Moving on to Leonardo, I had a similar problem that I had with Gemini where it was kind of zoomed in too much. So I asked it to show and the full computer system visible at the end, and this is what it came up with. Again, an interesting take on it, that the cassette is the way it is attached on the side. It doesn't really look much like a TRS-80 Model 1. So I decided to improve my text description. Here I said, create a realistic image of a TRS-80 Model 1 computer from the late 1970s with an expansion interface, floppy diskette drive, and cassette deck connected. The cassette deck should have a tape in it and the floppy drive should be spinning and the monitor should show something with TRS-DOS. This is a much more comprehensive description. Let's see how they do. So let's start off with Gemini again. Here you can see there is a cassette deck. Actually looks like there's a second one underneath the computer. The computer has a green monitor, and there is sort of a floppy drive, although it really looks kind of like a hard drive with a spinning platter. Moving on to ChatGPT, we see two cassette decks. Looks like kind of like a tape drive. There is what looks like a floppy drive and another floppy drive under the monitor with a keyboard and a monitor. While it's not totally correct, this does look like a reasonably decent rendering. Moving on to Canva, we see two cassette decks. Not really a TRS-80, a monitor, and something on the left there that looks kind of like a cassette deck, but no floppy. Canva came up with a number of images, and I thought this one was also worth showing. This kind of seems good. You do have the separate keyboard and the monitor and two cassette decks on the left. And moving on to Leonardo, we see something on the left that looks kind of like maybe a combined cassette and floppy if the floppies were inserted in the front. Two sets of keyboards, which is interesting, and a monitor. And Leonardo came up with a few images. Here this looks pretty realistic. I mean, at least it has the components. There is a floppy drive under the monitor, and I don't know what's on the left there. It doesn't really look like a cassette deck, but it tried. And finally, I've created a really long description of exactly what I wanted. I won't read this here, but you can take a look. I actually asked ChatGPT to help me come up with this description, which I modified and then fed it into all the other AI image generators, along with ChatGPT. So here we are with Gemini. You can see there's a cassette on the left, kind of looks like maybe a floppy drive underneath, a computer, and a monitor. So moving on to ChatGPT, we can see two cassette decks, maybe a floppy drive in front of those, no wires connecting anything, the keyboard which looks like a reasonable rendering, and the monitor. Canva came up with this. Notice the giant cassette on the left, and then some other things which it's really hard to tell what they are. And as before, Canva came up with a few images which I thought were interesting and thought I'd share. Moving on to Leonardo, this kind of looks more like a Mac, and it's interesting how there's a wire going to the cassette. And here's another image Leonardo created in the same instance. I'm including a bonus image for Leonardo as an honorable mention because the left gadget that looks kind of like a mouse strap to me. and again a wire plugged directly into the cassette. I did this just for fun to kind of see what they would do. So what do you think? In your opinion, which AI image generator produced the most realistic images? Feel free to add your thoughts in the comments. I added mine. I hope you enjoyed this little test of AI image generators. I do have other TRS-80 Model 1 related content. See the link in the description. Thanks for watching. And if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe.